Hello, happy Sunday, guys. I am so excited to get back into a typical Sunday series. The past few weeks we've been trying to catch up by doing like Wednesday lessons on Sundays just because there's been so much going on, but we are finally getting back into a Sunday lesson. It is supposed to be a 4-week series, but it's actually going to be a 2-week series. I'm going to do 2 lessons this week, 2 lessons next week, and then we will officially be back on track. So this series is called, and you have to say it just like this to make it sound good, it is called Just a Kid? So this whole series is about you just being a kid, but still being able to have amazing faith and amazing relationship with God. I've said this a million times. It does not matter what age, what size, what anything. You can share the gospel and you can lead people to Christ and show people Christ through the way you act, the way you speak to others, the way you treat others. Just everything, do everything with love and kindness, and you are showing God, and you are such a light for Jesus. So we actually have a memory verse with this series. Let me get to it. So it is 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12. And it is, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech and conduct and love and faith and in purity." So that will be kind of like our memory verse. If you guys want to rewatch this part and memorize it, then there might be a prize for you when you get back to the church, like when we get back all together again at the church. But yeah, so I'm going to read it one more time and then we're going to jump into our lessons, okay? So it is 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12. "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech and conduct and love and faith and in purity." All right, so the first lesson we are going to do today, we are reading about how David defeats Goliath, because the lesson is about how a kid can have faith. No matter your size, your age, anything, you can have faith. So we are reading in 1 Samuel, yes, chapter 17, verses 1 through 24, and then we're going to skip up to verses 32 through 50. This is kind of a long one, so bear with me, y'all. We're going to get through it together. Okay, so, all right. "Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Socoh in Judah. They pitched camp at Ephes-dammim between Socoh and Azekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley between them. A champion named Goliath, who was from the Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, 'Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us.' Then the Philistines said, 'This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other.' On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Now David was the son of a Ephrathite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons, and in Saul's time he was very old. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war. The firstborn was Eliab, the second Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend to his father's sheep in Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistine came forward every morning and evening and took his stand. Now Jesse said to his son David, 'Take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers, and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. See how your brothers are, and bring back some assurance from them.' There was Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. Early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd, loaded up and set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against the Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. "I cannot go in these," he said to Saul, "because I am not used to them." So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by the sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, without a sword in his hand, and he struck down the Philistine and killed him. So that is the story of how David, just a young man, young boy, killed Goliath. And not with swords, spears, or javelin. He did it with a stone because he had his faith in God. He had trust in God. We're going to go back to the verse where Saul told David that he would not be able to go against the Philistine and fight him because he was only a young man. And David replied to him with, "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Never once did he say that it was him himself that fought the bear and fought the lion and he rescued himself. He never once was like, "I am such a great warrior that I was able to do this." He knew that he could not do any of that without God, and he just gave all the glory to God and was like, "God has delivered me from this, and he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." So, even as a kid, you can have amazing faith in God. So, we are going to go ahead and go to our next lesson, the second one for this week. It is called A Kid Can Protect. So, we are going to be reading in Exodus chapter 1, verse 22 through chapter 2, verse 10. And this one's a little shorter, so it won't be as long. Okay, this is going to be about how Miriam protects her brother, Moses. So, Pharaoh gave this order to all his people. "Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live." Now a man of the tribes of Levi married a Levite woman. Levite, I don't know how to say that, I'm so sorry, Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." So that was the story of how Miriam saved her brother. She protected her brother. And you guys can do that too. Even though y'all are children, you guys can do great things, especially through God. Anything that God has planned for you, even as a child, God's plans are just beyond what you could ever imagine. He has the most beautiful plans for each and every single one of you. And I personally am so blessed to be a part of your guys' lives and to be able to see those plans just work out, all for His glory. So that is the end of our lessons today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. But yeah, I hope you guys have a really great Sunday. I can't wait to see y'all in person, and hope you guys have a great week. Bye.